Hey, Mirri.
What would you like to talk about?
Well, I remember you saying you've got a lot of experience looking for artifacts. Didn't you tell me your parents taught you?
My dad's an antiquarian. He gave me an appreciation of cultural artifacts. Mom showed me how to find them. I prefer to treat such things with the respect they deserve.
That's what I remember you telling me. Well, I need your help. I'm looking for an artifact, but this is a living artifact. Well, he's a Khajiit like me. But get this, he's from the First Era. I know, it sounds crazy, right? But someone told me in confidence that he'd been sent back by Azura. Turns out he's a necromancer like me, a good necromancer. Now you know I never use my necromancy to hurt anyone that doesn't really deserve it. And I've always had this idea of using it to help people. I just didn't know how. Well, it turns out that's what this Khajiit does. His name is Zerith-var, and he's able to help spirits find redemption and peace. I need to find him. I feel like I've been looking for him all along, but I just didn't know it. So can I count on your help?
I could go for a bit of excitement.
Okay, before we get going, I want to look at my character sheet. You can see that my character is a Khajiit and they're a top damage dealer race. I'll put up the tier list for stamina damage dealers. Even though Khajiit is a top DPS race, they're not ideal for this build, but my Necromancer is a Khajiit, so I'm kind of stuck. Why aren't Khajiit ideal for this? Because they have a 12% bonus to critical damage, and that puts this build right at the crit damage cap. Now this is fine if I'm just running around solo, but less than ideal for group content. Since I'm at the crit damage cap, I won't be able to get any group bonuses that apply to that. For instance, if somebody uses the Warhorn skill, I won't get any boost to my damage. Depending on whether or not I run with groups and how organized those groups are, there are a few ways to alter the build, and I'll talk about that later. How did my crit damage modifier get that high? In a word, subclassing. That's one of the characteristics of a subclass build. Anyway, another race like Orc or Dark Elf would be more ideal here. My buff food I'm using is lava foot soup and salt rice, which gives me stamina and stamina recovery. I often swap this for Zorga's Tripe Trifle Pocket when I want to be a little tankier. That food gives me health and the same amount of stamina recovery. As always, I'm using the Thief Mundus Stone, which increases my critical strike chance. This is going to be the best Mundus for group content, and thanks to subclassing, this is probably going to be the best for any content. Another characteristic of subclassing is increased penetration, so the odds of needing to use the Lover Mundus are going to be pretty small from here on out. At the top of the sheet, I've got all 64 points in stamina. That leaves me with 19,000 points of health and 30,000 points of stamina. 19,000 health isn't that much, but at least I'm not trolling in dungeons with 16,000. If I keep running this, I'll probably increase my health a little. One piece of light armor would be a good way, so I can take advantage of the Undaunted passive. I've got 4,400 points of weapon damage and 59% crit chance. I've always said that crit is king, and that hasn't changed with subclassing, and crit is higher than ever. Stamina recovery's at 1,500, and that's solid. I use potions of weapon power on this setup, and I don't need the major brutality, but I do need major savagery. Penetration is low at 3,800, but that's another thing that gets increased by subclassing. In the sample fight I do, you'll see it winds up much higher than that. So what is it about subclassing that's buffing crit, penetration, and the crit damage modifier? The answer is simple: class passives. Make sure you take all your class passives and make sure you have at least one skill from each class on your primary bar. Alright, that covers the most important stuff on the character sheet, so let's move on. I'm glad you're okay. No thanks to those pirates that gave us this bum steer. This is no Hidden Moon Temple, and I don't think Zerith-var was ever anywhere near this place. I need to make an offering. That was rough. I think divine intervention saved us there. Did you see that? The Twilight Lady spoke to me. She said I needed to help Zerith-var bring back the Order of the Hidden Moon, that not just the Khajiit people, but all of Nirn depended on it. She did more than speak. I think she rearranged my skill bar. Check this out. She said, "Take my divine spear." Pretty cool, eh? I can tell you're unimpressed. Well, let's see what else she did to my skill bar. This is a 2-bar build that uses light attack weaving, and I promise that I'll get around to doing some 1-bar subclassing builds. But right now I'm converting my characters over to subclassing builds, and the videos you're getting are those builds. This one is a Necromancer with Nightblade and Templar subclasses, and you probably picked up on the idea that I'm going to lean into the theme of a Necromancer that uses his powers for good. At least that's how I'm going to rationalize a Necromancer that spams the Templars biting jabs. Starting on the back bar, the first skill I use is the Necromancer Skeletal Archer. The Archer does ever-increasing damage every 2 seconds and gives me major brutality and sorcery. As it turns out, I don't really need potions of weapon power with this build, but I'm going to use them anyway for extra damage. Without the potions, I wouldn't have major savagery on my back bar. Next, I'm going to use Blighted Blast Bones to send an explosive skeleton at my enemy. What could be worse than an exploding skeleton, right? Maybe a Minecraft creeper, but that's about it. I hate those things. Now I'm going to charge my enemy with the Stampede skill from the 2-handed skill line. This works to increase my weapon damage and leaves a damaging AoE at the feet of my enemy. I keep using this skill each time I go through my rotation. It doesn't matter if I'm 2 feet away from the enemy, I'm still using it. Now I'm going to use another signature Gravelord skill, and that's Unnerving Boneyard. This does damage over time to enemies in the area and reduces their armor with major breach. It also applies minor vulnerability, increasing damage by 5%. I want to point out that the order of the skills and timing is important here. I don't want the Boneyard to consume the Blast Bone's corpse. Blast Bones won't blow up until after I use Boneyard, and that's deliberate. I'm saving that corpse for a skill on my other bar. I suppose I should add that the order of all the skills and the bar which they're on is important. Be careful if you're going to change something. The build may not work as well if you do. I have 2 skills left on this bar, and one is my healing skill, Resolving Vigor. This skill is going to explode in popularity now that nobody will have access to their class heals. It's all damage all the time. Forget those other skill lines. No, just kidding, but for damage dealers, that's going to be the norm, and that's primarily the kind of build I do on my channel. My last skill on this bar is the Necro's Glacial Colossus. This does its own damage, but its main use is in applying 17 seconds of major vulnerability to enemies. This causes affected enemies to take 10% more damage, and that's huge. Okay, that finishes the back bar, so let's look at the front bar. Here I have dual-wield daggers, and unlike the back bar, I've slotted at least 1 skill from each of my 3 classes. The back bar doesn't really matter, but on my primary or front bar, I need to make sure all of my class passives are going to be active because it's the passives that do the heavy lifting. The first skill I'm going to talk about is the Nightblade skill, Merciless Resolve. It's possible that this will be the first skill I use on this bar because I'm going to use it whenever it's ready. Every light attack I make successfully will give me a stack of Merciless Resolve. 5 stacks will be indicated by the skill glowing brightly on my bar, and then I can fire the Spectral Arrow for massive damage. It's possible to accumulate 10 stacks and fire 2 arrows in a row, but I'm not interested in ganking here. This build is strictly a PvE damage dealer, so I'm going to fire the arrow once every 5 stacks. Outside of using Merciless Resolve, whenever it's ready, I'll use my skills on this bar in the following order. First is the Detonating Siphon, and this is the skill that I want to consume the Blast Bone's corpse that I produced while I was on my back bar. And that's because without a corpse I can't use this skill. I can press the button, but nothing's going to happen. When I have a corpse, I can consume it with the siphon to do disease damage to enemies nearby, and a tether between the corpse and my character will also damage enemies. After 20 seconds, the siphon will expire and explode, doing additional damage. Next, after the siphon, I use the Fighter's Guild skill, Barbed Trap. I put this close to the feet of my enemy and it will cause bleed damage over time and increase my weapon damage by 3% just for having it slotted. It also provides a minor force buff, which is redundant on this build with the gear I'm running. Now I'm going to use my spammable attack and the only Templar skill on this bar, Biting Jabs. Biting Jabs produces an Adric Spear which strikes enemies in front of me 3 times. In addition to physical damage, each strike has a 10% chance to cause the Sundered status effect. Sunder does instant damage and applies minor breach, reducing enemy armor by 3,000 points. I like biting jabs as a spammable, but its real power here is in the Adric Spear skill line passives. I get a 12% increase in critical damage just for slotting a skill from this line. Slotting an Adric Spear skill also increases my weapon damage by 6% courtesy of the Balanced Warrior passive. When I use biting jabs, I activate the Spear Wall passive and I gain minor berserk, increasing my damage by 5%. There's one last benefit to slotting biting jabs, and that's the Burning Light passive. This does additional damage to my enemy based on accumulating stacks of Burning Light. There's a lot going on here, and I could have let you guys just read the tooltips yourselves, but I wanted to emphasize how much the Adric Spear skill line brings to the build just for slotting and using one skill. I'm going to end up using biting jabs about 12 times on this bar. I say about because I'm going to substitute Merciless Resolve when it's ready. The two skills together should be 12 attacks. When my target is below 25% health, I'm going to substitute the Nightblade skill Killer's Blade for biting jabs until my target is dead. That's my execute skill. I'm looking for the same number of attacks here, 12. Why 12? How did I arrive at 12? Because a lot of my skills last for 20 seconds before they need to be refreshed. You can try a little experiment for yourself and verify this. Start a fight with something and go through your rotation. Keep an eye on the skeletal archer and watch for when he keels over. That's the time to swap bars and refresh that skill and repeat the entire rotation. This is a static rotation. Not every skill will conform perfectly to this method of timing, so this isn't as good as doing a dynamic rotation. But since most skills have their durations adjusted to 20 seconds, it works pretty well. I have one last skill on this bar, and that's the Nightblade skill, Soul Harvest. Soul Harvest gives me increased crit chance and gives me ultimate when I kill an enemy just for slotting it. It's also a good low-cost ultimate to use in a pinch. I haven't mentioned the Nightblade Assassination skill line passives, but they're just as important as the Templar passives. They provide extra critical chance and extra crit damage. Some of that critical chance depends on me flanking my enemy, so I want to do that as much as possible. I mentioned earlier how subclassing results in the build being right at the crit damage cap, and that's the result of having access to the passive skills of multiple classes. Okay, that's it for skills. Now I'm going to do a quick sample fight and I'll list the rotation off to the side. $82,000 points of damage per second. That's enough damage to take you anywhere you want to go. If there was content in the game that you couldn't get done before, now is the time. Get yourself a subclass build, if not this one, somebody else's or even one of your own. Get out there and do the content you want to do. Crit chance is high with this setup. It averaged almost 75%. You can see the penetration peaked at 16,000 points. Don't use the Lover Mundus Stone, and I'll keep saying that even though I know you guys are sick of it. My critical damage modifier, on average, was 122%. The cap is 125. So I want to make you aware that if you run this build in organized groups, you need to make adjustments to give yourself a little room to allow for group bonuses. First, don't run a Khajiit. I honestly think the developers are going to have to do something with their racial passives. That crit damage modifier bonus they have is going to be a pain going forward. Second, you can make a change to the gear. Third, you can swap champion points. And I'll talk about the last 2 points next in the gear section. Oh, wow. I'm glad you're okay. You took a shot there. Well, I guess the captain should have told us the truth in the first place. Well, the pirates we didn't have to kill say that Zerith-var and a companion paid for passage to a place called Solstice. It would have gone a lot easier on them if they told us that in the first place.
I can't stand goblins, or snakes, or boats. They all make me want to retch, for different reasons. The less we deal with any of them, the better.
Come on, it'll be fun. Well, we made it, barely. Those CLs must have sent storms to wreck us. I didn't see anything about a small craft advisory. Let's check the gear and make sure we still have everything. I've got one of the new sets from Solstice on my front bar this time. This is the crafted set, Tideborn Wildstalker. I've got 2 daggers, and one is Nirnhone with poison damage, and the other is precise with fire damage. The Tideborn set gives a big bonus to direct damage, and it's going to work best on builds with a lot of damage of that type. The more direct damage, the better. A great thing about Tideborn is that it doesn't have any bonuses to the crit damage modifier, so this set is going to play nice with the new subclassing system. And its unnamed buff to direct damage is going to be compatible with anything. On my back bar I have the Maelstrom's Perfected Greatsword and the infused trait with a weapon damage glyph. If you don't have that, put a proc set on the back bar. I did. I ran this with a bunch of different sets. But if you have the Maelstrom Greatsword, run that because its bonus to direct damage is almost like having a third set on. My other 5-piece set is Order's Wrath. This is a classic crafted set that works great here, but there's a problem. It has a bonus to the crit damage modifier. If you find yourself going over the crit damage cap in groups, you can swap this set out. In a lot of this video, I ran Venomous Smite. That's an overland set from Western Skyrim, and it'll work great. Run Pillar of Nirn if you want. Just body it and let it proc at will. Run what works best for you. I have on a Zon Monster Helm here for extra crit. Any helm with a 1-piece crit bonus will work here. Slimecraw used to be the standard, but they reduced its bonus so all the 1-piece crit bonuses are the same. I just happen to have Zon on me, so I used that. Last but not least is the Velothi Mage's Amulet. This necklace gives a huge bonus to overall damage at the expense of light attack damage. The Harpooner's Wading Kilt used to be great for group stuff where you had a tank, but that's going to be tough to use from here on out because that's another item that increases the crit damage modifier. Alright, let's wrap up the gear. I'm wearing all medium armor in the Divine's trait with stamina glyphs, but if I keep running this build, I'll change a couple of body pieces to light armor. That will increase crit and penetration, but lower my crit damage modifier. Sorry if I sound like I'm beating a dead horse here, but this isn't something that the average player had to worry about before, but now it's become a thing. Let's go ahead and look at champion points. The blue ones are Master at Arms, Wrathful Strikes, Fighting Finesse, and Biting Aura. In even a half-organized group, you may want to drop Fighting Finesse for Deadly Aim. If you don't know what Fighting Finesse does, read the tooltip and you'll know instantly why I said that. Okay, that's a wrap for this build. Let's get off this beach. Sure, Stan. Doesn't look like much.
What do you say we try some of the local fare? I'm famished.
Inside or outside? Do you see what I see? That's a Khajiit with glowing blue eyes.
Do not mind me staring at your garments. I am from a different time, and I have never been good at hiding my curiosity. My scrutiny should feel nothing less than complimentary.
Well guys, now that I've found Zerith-var, that's all I have for you today. The work of reforming the Hidden Moon is just beginning, but the video is almost over. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, help me out by smashing the like button, and if you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. I'm going to close the video with one last fight, and you guys can watch that if you want. After the fight, there's a shot from the Superstar add-on showing this build at a glance. Thanks for watching, have a great day, and enjoy your adventures in Tamriel.